So if you've switched CRMs, if you've changed ad strategies and you're still getting the same consistent underperforming results, let's step back and ask why and reshape our thinking.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to today's webinar. Today we're talking about maximizing your lead conversion. We got Robert Lucido here with us. My name is Brett. I'm here to help kind of facilitate this here. This webinar is being sponsored by Chime, so we are going to be putting some stuff out there. I know we have a couple of Chime execs on the call with us today. There is going to be stuff in the chat for current customers with Chime and those who are thinking about switching over to Chime. Moving on from there, today we have Robert Lucido, Chief Strategy Officer of Lucido Global. Welcome, Robert. What do you have for us today?
Morning your time. Good afternoon for everyone else on the West Coast.
Right.
You want to dive into the deck?
Yeah, let's absolutely dive into the deck.
Perfect. So thanks everyone for coming. All right, so let's dive in. So first question, if I were to propose this question to you, what is lead gen? Everyone go to the chat box right now. And Brett, if you can help me out, field some of the responses.
You got
it. What is lead gen? I want your guys' honest responses on what lead gen means to you.
We're waiting on it. Potential client, generating new leads, creating them. Wow, it's starting to flow. Generating next business, money. I mean, we're seeing finding motivated clients, possible transactions. What do you define lead gen as, Robert?
So lead gen has become this catch-all term that basically means everything from when you capture a contact to either when it transacts with you or it was a bad lead. And for the vast majority of people, this is the entire sales funnel of when they think about lead gen, this is how they think of it. So let me paint a picture for you. You know, assume you went down to Talladega for the Indy 500 and the driver's cruising along and he's crushing it and he blows a big lead and he ends up losing. And the reporter goes down there and says, driver, you know, what happened out there? Why did you lose? And he said, my gas was bad. All right, maybe you give him the benefit of the doubt the first time, but then the second race he has it, the third race, all of a sudden you're like, hey, maybe it's not the gas, maybe it's the driver. You know, I'm a fan of stand-up comedy, and Ron White has a great clip, and I'll keep it PG. But he was doing a stand-up bit at Fort Polk, and he made a comment that there's 40,000 service members stationed there. And a drunk woman stood up in the crowd and yelled, and every one of them's a bad date. And he said, well, you think after 39,000, you would be like, maybe it's me. The same thing applies to lead generation. So if you've switched CRMs, if you've changed ad strategies and you're still getting the same consistent underperforming results, let's step back and ask why and reshape our thinking. So this right here, what I'm showing is what lead gen means to most people. Second question, again, go to the chat box. What is the goal of lead gen? So now if we've started to help define what lead gen should be, let's start with the end in mind. What is the goal of lead gen? And Brett, if you can help me out.
Yeah, I'm waiting for people to respond. Set an appointment is coming. Wow, a lot of set an appointment. Okay. Build a sphere, that kind of stuff.
Good, awesome. So let's dig into that. And I'll promise I'll get you an answer to this exact question as we go through. In fact, ideally, you'll come up with the answer and I won't even have to say it. So sales funnel is broken down into 3 phases. The first one is lead generation. The second one is business generation. And the third one is database management. So if you think lead generation is everything from lead capture, lead generation to closing, you're already off base. We need to get crystal clear on what a sales funnel actually means. And that's what the topic of today's webinar is. Of course, we'll cover a few specific strategies at each step of the process, but really for strategies to be effective, they need to be set in a holistic sales funnel. You know, everyone wants the one tip, the one thing that's going to make the incredible difference in their conversion rate. And in reality, it's not really just one thing. It's one thing stacked upon the other, which is going to help you perform at a much better rate. Now, at a much better rate, we're talking about 5% as opposed to 2%. So you're still failing 95% of the time. So we really have to be clear at each step of the process and how we optimize this engine. So let's dig into the first phase. And this will all be available at the end of the webinar. So no worries, you don't have to write all this down. Lead generation, we break it down to 3 steps. We call it Q1, Q2, and Q3. So before we even get to the place of trying to convert these leads, we're already tracking 3 different steps. The first step is an unqualified contact. So whether you pay for it or not, you get contact information. You don't know if the email is valid or the phone number is valid, and you don't know if it matches the contact's name. This is a Q1, an unqualified contact. The second step is we have now validated the contact information, the phone number or the email, but we still don't know if it corresponds to the profile's name. The third step is now we've validated the contact information and we have verified it corresponds to the person. This is called a marketing qualified lead. A few other notes here for Q1. For every lead you capture, a general rule of thumb, there's going to be about 10 people that came to your website and did not register. There's also going to be about 5 to 7 in our experience that partially registered. If you're with Chime, our websites are built out to capture partial leads. Not every website can say this. So if someone comes on and they put in their address, or if they put in their email, but then they stop the process, they don't give you the rest of it, we're still capturing that information. So first, of course, what are we doing with the leads we capture? And secondly, what are we doing with the leads we didn't capture so we don't miss out on these potential opportunities as well? Q2, listen up here because I'm going to save you guys about $200 a lead right here. How do you validate a phone number? Well, Chime, go in and create a simple smart plan. After a lead registers, send it a text message. If the text message bounces, it's an invalid phone number. If it goes through, you know it's in service and it's a valid phone number. Again, we don't know if it matches the person, but you have validated the contact information. There are lead providers out there that'll do just that and then sell you the lead for $200. Save yourself some money and just create a one-step smart plan that can solve that gap for you. Last thing, Q3, marketing qualified lead. General benchmark we have found is MQL should be between 85 and 90% of your overall lead flow. So if you're doing a great job of managing your campaigns, if you capture 100 leads, 85 to 90 of them should reach MQL status. Okay, so to go back to that first question, what is the goal of lead generation? Now that you've seen how we conceptualize our lead generation phase, it comes down to 3 things. The first is we're trying to maximize the prevalence of MQLs, marketing qualified leads. Secondly, we're trying to minimize the expense of those MQLs. Now, key point here, we're not talking about CPL. If you capture a lead with invalid contact information, a wrong phone, an inactive phone number, a fake email, and a fake name, what are you going to do with that lead? That's wasted spend. So we don't want to manage to just CPL. I laugh whenever someone posts, oh, I ran this ad and I captured 100 leads at $1. That means nothing.
I'm so happy you said that.
So what you're really looking at in this lead generation phase is you're looking at how many MQLs are you capturing versus overall leads, and what's the effective expense to you, the effective cost per MQL for running that funnel. And then thirdly, this is the most skilled, there's art and science to each step of lead generation. This is the real art to it. The third step is to maximize the prevalence of certain variables that correlate with a higher likelihood of conversion. So what that means is there's certain features when you're running ad spend, certain variables that have a higher propensity that correlate more with conversion. It's very challenging to do a really good job of managing to that. And we'll get into some of those reasons why. But if you do it effectively, that's how your campaigns can significantly outperform the competition. So How do we do that? If that's our goal, how do we do that? There's a lot of different features. One of the things we'll focus on right now is keyword targeting. When you're working with Chime's ads team, and by the way, we've consolidated all of our ad spend runs through Chime's ads team. When you're sitting down, one of the aspects that you do this is around keyword targeting. Now, certain keywords will correlate with a high contact information veracity rate. So valid contact information. I know I'm throwing a lot of jargon out there, but data quality. Other keywords will correlate with a higher propensity to do business. And then, of course, the third consideration is the overall cost of targeting those keywords. Now, let me give you an example. You may have a keyword that generates a very high rate of valid contact information, but it may have a very low propensity to transact, meaning, you may run an ad for Malibu and you may capture a bunch of leads with valid contact information that have zero expressed interest in actually transacting real estate. Conversely, you may target, I want to sell my house in Malibu in the next 24 hours, a very high propensity to convert, but you may get a very high rate of invalid contact information. So if you measure something, you can improve it. So these are the things that you should be working with the ads teams to measure so that you can improve, you can help them, allow them to do it for you to improve the performance of these campaigns. And you need to get crystal clear on what keywords are correlating with contact information, veracity rates, as well as propensity to convert. We'll get into how you can do that in the next phase. Just running through my notes here. Last thing, as I mentioned, we do all of our ad spend through Chime. And since we made the switch over, they're not paying me at all to say this. I'm sure it's going to seem like that. We have tripled, if, depending on the month, we've 3x, 4x, or 5x our conversion rate within 30 days. Now, whether you're a big team with a big budget, it's really important that you're getting the ROI on that, especially in a down market. Conversely, if you're a small team, a solo agent with a small budget, it's really important that you have experts to help you, because just to be totally frank, it's hard for a smaller budget to compete in major markets. Basically, what it entails is you have to micro-target specific areas, you have to target specific keywords, and you have to be up to date on what current market trends are. Unless you're a market lead generation expert and you want to make it your sole focus, you need to trust a team that has the experience and the resources to do it for you. All right, next. So let's talk about optimization. Every campaign you run is going to have a learning phase. So right off the bat, you have to set that expectation in your mind. So I'll give you two examples here. Team A is spending $1,000 a month, and Team B is spending $24,000 a month. All things considered equal, it's going to take Team A 2 years to capture as much data as Team B will in 1 month. If you're trying to optimize campaigns effectively, you need a large sample size. Brett, I know you're a baseball fan, so get ready. Here's the analogy. The Mets just lost the wild card game to the Padres. If you had sat down and watched game 2, Manny Machado went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, including in clutch situations. If you had looked at that sample size and been like, this guy sucks, you take him out of the lineup. Well, the next night he went 2 for 5 with a key RBI single. The same thing applies to lead generation. Too many people I hear call in, they run an ad for like 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks even, and they're like, this isn't working, we need to switch it. And then they make changes and it starts the learning curve over again. And they just keep doing this so their campaigns never reach maturity. And so that leads to the 3 common pitfalls around optimization. The first is overmanagement. You're making changes too often and too early. The second is absentee management, which means obviously you're MIA. You're not making the proper adjustments at the right time. And that often comes from a skilled ads team that can do that for you, that's tracking all these KPIs. And third is mismanagement. Again, going back to the Manny Machado scenario, you're making the wrong decision because you're either looking at the wrong data or you're looking at too small of a sample set. If you're spending $1,000 a month and you cap your leads at $30, you're capturing 30 leads that month after expenses. Those 30 leads may be spread across 15 keywords. So you're looking at 1, maybe 2 leads per keyword, and you're going to sit down there and say, hey, this keyword's working really well. No, you're not. You need a large sample size and you need to collect a lot of data over time. And with that data, you can optimize it down the funnel and up the funnel. Down the funnel, you're going to look at KPIs like cost per lead, cost per MQL. And then up the funnel, you're going to look at something called UTM, Urchin Tracking Module. You don't have to know how it works. You don't have to know how it's built. You just have to know what it does. UTM will allow you to track keywords back up the funnel. So what leads have you closed? And you'll be able to track it back to the keyword that you used to capture that lead. Several months ago, we worked with the Chime's ads team to build out this functionality right into the Chime platform. And so when you capture a lead, this is a lead we captured yesterday. You can see that this person registered, went onto Google and typed in new homes near Sarasota, Florida, came to our website and registered. That's right in the profile. We can sort by these. We can track these things. Our inside sales team knows how to engage based upon more information. And we can also run reports to track keywords by conversion in the pipeline. Now, another aspect, this is a more nuanced aspect of it that I thought I'd throw in there as an extra little kicker. Agents, especially if you're a team operator, your agents are always asking for more leads, new leads, new leads. I need more leads. They may be sitting on 2,000 leads, but they're always going to look for the next one. It's always the new shiny object. And if you're in a position where you're just trying to check a box, particularly if you're a team leader and you're just trying to provide leads, you're going to be solely focused on cold capture. And if you're only focused on cold capture, typically you're focusing on the most expensive leads to acquire, and then you're not really doing anything with them. So if you think back to that one of those first slides where I talked about how for every 1 lead you capture, about 10 don't register. Let's look at that. So you have cold capture running, whether it's Bing, Google PPC, whatever. The leads have 2 options. They either register or they don't. If they register, well, you can put them on remarketing campaigns. And if you have a marketing department, you can do some really cool stuff in terms of driving people very low cost ads to drive them down the funnel. If they do not register, you can hit them with dynamic retargeting ads, which are very cheap and very effective to drive them back to your website. Now, a key aspect to your online presence is your SEO. We all know this. A lot of people don't really know what drives it and what understands it, and they don't have the time to focus on it. SEO plays a factor in your cold capture. For example, on Google. If you have better SEO, your ads are going to perform better. So the caveat to that, though, is your paid ads do not factor into your SEO. So Google is going to sit back and say, hey, they paid for this visitor. Don't count it to help their SEO or their indexing. However, if you drive them to your website from a paid ad from another medium, Facebook, whatever it may be, Instagram, you drive them back to your website, that does count. So over the last 2 years, we tripled our website traffic last year. We've already tripled it again this year. So when you're running this, and when you break your conceptualization of we always need to capture new leads, and you start looking at a holistic funnel, you open this up and you say, hey, for the long-term success, I'm capturing leads here. For the 10 that don't register, let's retarget them and capture maybe 1 or 2 for a fraction of the cost. And if they do register, well, then you're doing really cool things around remarketing. We're doing a ton of stuff around B2B marketing, again, because we have the scale, we have the people in place, we have the expertise. We're doing some really cool stuff to drive people down the funnel. And all of that is playing into our SEO, which means 2 things, better cold capture and better organic traffic. Our organic leads were our #1 team lead converting source last year. Not paid, not lead aggregators, not ancillary leads, top 1 leads that came to our website organically. Switch gears, second phase, business generation. Business generation, we break down to 5 steps from C1 to C5. And so I'll take you through these things, but when you're looking at this, the question that should come to your mind is, how do we drive engagement? One common pitfall is people ask for time before they get engagement. These are cold leads. You need to warm them up. So how are you warming these leads up? Well, there's 4 easy ways with Chime. Really 3 easy ways and 1 key differentiator. The first one's property alerts. Property alerts, everyone has them, but Chimes are intuitive. They're even intelligent. So, you set it, and as people, let me back up. Our open rate on property alerts is about 50%, if not higher, depending on the month. And one of the reasons that is because the property alerts are intuitive. We're always sending them the most up-to-date information, not just based upon the MLSs, but based upon their demonstrated interest. Again, we're showing value and we're getting engagement in return. Market reports and market snapshots are 2 other great, easy ways for you to do that as well. And then lastly, smart plans. Smart plans is the #1 way you can differentiate yourself, not just from other CRM users, but from Chime users as well. There's a lot of science, there's a lot of art to smart plans. And if you get really good at running your smart plans, you can do some really cool things. You can save yourself a lot of time and dramatically improve your conversion rate. So let me give you a few best practices around C1. If you want to set appointments, someone said what the goal of lead gen was to set appointment. Now we know the goal of lead gen is to maximize MQLs and minimize expense of the MQLs. If we were to say, what's our first goal of business generation? That's when you say set an appointment. If you want to set an appointment, 2 best practices. 30% of your conversions are going to come within the first 120 seconds. 50% are going to come within the first 2 calls. So let's put our thinking cap on. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and let's double tap within the first 120 seconds. So what that means, when you capture a lead, call. If it rings 3 or 4 times with no answer, hang up and call back again. This is a very common practice for inside sales divisions, but it's really important right now because now that the phone carriers are getting more intelligent with spam calls or telemarketer, that can help you get over any potential hurdles in that respect. There's also a little side note, pro tip. There's different registries that you can register your number on to help you get not on the do not call or telemarketer list. So that's a little pro tip there. You can go Google that. All right, 2 more tips. If speed to lead is important, as we all know, you got to download the mobile app. We're always on the move. We cannot allow our business to wait for when we're at our desktop. If you get a lead notification, again, in your back of your mind, 120-second shot clock goes off. On average, a digital lead gets sold 12 times. So the longer you wait to contact, you're giving all those other people a head start. And if you think about it that way as a race, if you're competitive like I am, you don't want to lose. Speed to lead. Another really easy way, effective way is you should invest in, at very least, a standard dialer. You may not need unlimited. You may not need a 3-call dialer. Very few agents need that. But you need a standard dialer. This is 50 cents a day to get started. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to send and receive phone calls through your Chime app. It's automatically going to capture those communications. And to go back, if you're using smart plans effectively, those communications will either help trigger smart plans or pause smart plans, both critical things for maximizing conversion. All right, C2. So now we set an appointment. Now we set it and leave it, right? Go hang our laurels, have a cigar, go have a celebratory drink. We've made it. Now, when you set an appointment, my question is, what steps are you now taking to ensure maximum show rate? Too often people are like, oh, well, I got an appointment, but they didn't show up. Well, my question is, did you take ownership of that? Did you take ownership of ensuring to your best of your ability that your prospect showed up for that appointment? 2 simple ways you can do this is use the appointment box in Chime. It's going to send them a calendar invite. If it's on their calendar, it's real. They're less likely to forget about it. Plus, there's reminders. Secondly, when you set an appointment, are you sending a confirmation email with the details of the meeting, a bio on yourself, a headshot? Those are 2 really simple things. But again, take ownership of that. Don't hope. Hope is not a strategy. You need to take active steps to ensure that all the effort you put in to convert that lead to appointment set, you're then putting in that incremental additional effort to get them to show up for the appointment, whether it's virtual or in person. All right, step 3. Now this is when the dollars start to be made. You're now converting, you're getting paper signed. C3 to C5 is all about your skill set as a negotiator. At Lucido Global, we run high-level advanced negotiation trainings every week. Our partners need to break the conception that they're real estate agents, that they're realtors. No, you are skilled negotiators helping people handle for 96% of the country, their most expensive asset. A bad move around their primary residence can either, can break them. Conversely, it can make them. It can help them get to the next stage in their life. It can get to a better house, a better neighborhood, better school district. So you need to conceptualize yourself as being a truly skilled negotiator. And that's where you'll really cut your chops from C3 to C5. One big pro tip here, two pro tips here. The first is, ideally, you want to set an appointment in person, belly to belly. But if you're setting a virtual appointment, your camera has to be on. A study I read a couple months ago found that there was a 127% increase in close rate if your camera was on. This should be no surprise to anyone because only 7% of human communication is verbal. The rest is how you communicate it and how you use your body when communicating. If you want to instill trust in your counterpart, in this prospect, in this client, let them see your face and establish that level of rapport. Or you might as well not even show up for that appointment. Next, once you do get paper signed, if they're a listing, Chime pushed out seller reports a couple updates ago. And so this will allow you to another easy touch for your clients. It'll send them a weekly report showing them listing activity, viewer activity, showing activity on your website. It's another additional touch at no additional work from you. C4, now we've got them under contract. I don't know to what extent you guys are using it, but the social studio in Chime is very effective. If you're like me, you don't particularly like going onto social media and creating all these posts every time, especially if you have a great business and you're very busy. So if you use the social studio, you can set it up. You can control the templates, the verbiage. It connects directly with your MLS. So you can set it up that whenever you get a new listing, go under contract or close, it can automatically post to your respective social media channel. Maybe you want it Facebook and Instagram. Maybe you just want it Instagram. You can do that. So it's another thing you can automate for yourself.
It can also send out your postcards for you too.
There you go. All right. So now we've covered the business generation funnel from C1 to C5. And again, you should be tracking each step of these things because with certainty and clarity, you can actually improve this engine. You can figure out where the pitfalls are, where the waste is, and how you can improve. After you close, are you done? No, because then it goes into your database management. And that's a topic for a whole other different webinar, how you effectively bridge the gap of the 7 to 11-year sales cycle. 90% of clients say they work with their agent again, but only 12% do. That's because agents do a very ineffective job of database management by and large. So that's the overall first 2 phases of how you run a lead funnel and the things that you should track and the different pro tips. If you go ahead and scan this QR code, you can go as promised and download that blueprint. It's going to outline those first 2 phases for you and each step in those phases as well as descriptions. So I'll leave this up here for another 15 seconds. Maybe that's too long, 10 seconds. And then there's one other slide, I think, from Chime that I'll throw up there, and then we can take some questions. All right. And then this was the one from Chime. So you can take this one, Brett, or if you want me to, I can.
Go for it. You're sounding good.
If you're a current customer, go ahead and shoot an email with anything that we covered today. If you have any questions or if you want to add in, go ahead and shoot an email to customervalueteam@chime.inc. And then similarly, there's another QR code here for any non-customers that want to learn more information about anything we covered today.
Nice.
Cool.
All right. We've been fielding questions over here for you.
Okay.
First things first, let's talk about, can we go back to the UTM and kind of explain how you use the UTM codes?
Yeah, sure. Let me go back. I see someone asked for this QR code. I'll leave it up here for a few more seconds. The blueprint didn't work. You can also go to lucidocareers.com/blueprint. And that will take you to the same thing. I apologize if the QR code broke. So it's lucidocareers.com/blueprint.
Yep. Sweet.
All right. So go back to UTM. Got it. All right. So UTMs, again, that helps you track the keyword that's being used to capture that lead. And where this has value is helping you to establish a correlation between that keyword and their likelihood of converting. So, if you're prototypically, people are always working up the funnel down. So they're looking at CPLs is the most common. And there's not much detail around that. Very few people are working back up the funnel and saying, hey, I've closed a dozen leads. Let's look at the keywords that are driving those. And maybe 3 of them came from one keyword and 4 of them came from another. And then you're sitting there thinking that, hey, these are our top 2 keywords. Let's go back up the funnel and see what the CPLs are, because then you can compare conversion rates and say, hey, these leads are $5 additional on the front end, but they're closing at 10% greater rate. Let's make that $5 additional investment at the front end so we generate thousands more on the back end. So that's how we use UTM, specifically within the profile. Again, whenever you capture a lead through Chime's ads team. So this is one of the advantages when we were going through our exploratory of whether we wanted to do our ad spend with Chime's team or a third party. There's a lot of advantages that you get by doing it with Chime's ads team that you wouldn't have with a third party. And one of them is this UTM right here. So the UTM is going to show up as a keyword in your profiles. So when this lead pops in, you can know exactly what drove them, what they searched for in Google, and what led them to register. So that's how we use UTM.
Perfect. Another question that I brought up is, what is the most effective way to land that meeting? Email, phone call, text, AI. What have you found is the most effective way to land that meeting?
For setting an appointment? Yeah. Setting an appointment needs to be done on phone. By and large, first of all, you're never really going to get it over email. And if you get something over email, you're going to have a very high no-show rate. It's very low intent, very low commitment. Yep. By and large, general rule of thumb, you should be using text and emails to drive engagement. And once you get engagement, hop on the phone and close for interest, close for time. Whenever you're closing, you've already generated enough rapport and enough engagement so you can actually transition to the close. If you're trying to close out the gate, you're going to be pretty ineffective. Yeah.
So in your Chime CRM, are you using the Q1, Q2, Q3? Are you using those as your pipelines, essentially? No, what are you using as your pipelines?
Our pipelines, here, let me pull it up.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No, it's a good question. The answer is no, because that terminology is good for management, but not for the agent interface.
Yeah.
So for our pipelines, we have new lead, attempting contact, nurturing, hot, appointment set, met, signed, pending, closed.
Okay. Yeah, you do yours. I like that way. That's cool. I use hot, warm, cold, not responded, and dead, and then new leads. So same principle.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it depends on your process and how you want to run things. But in terms of those Q1, Q2, Q3, and then C1 through 5 is how we manage things from the back end.
Awesome. Awesome. What is your average lead to close conversion rate for your internet leads? And I know this is, I see, and the thing is, that's a broad question.
It's a loaded
break it down average.
It's a loaded question too, because it depends on time frame. So
that's exactly it.
Let me anchor it back to, so let's say you carve out a strategy and say, hey, I'm building a team for the long run.
Yeah.
I'm going to target a lot of leads, a lot of keywords that will generate a high rate of valid contact information. Maybe they're not ready to convert right now, but I'll nurture them over the next few years. If you said, what's your conversion rate on that? It would be much lower than if I were targeting the high propensity keywords.
Right.
So that's one aspect of how it's very, somewhat of a loaded question, because it's time frame. If you say 12 months, okay, within a calendar year, I could give you a number, but what if we capture a lead on Christmas? If it doesn't convert right away, it hurts our performance. No, what we track is our conversion rate inside of 30 days. So we set the bar pretty high, and right now we're between 8 and 10%.
Okay. Yeah. And I was gonna say it is a pretty loaded question, but that was honestly probably the best possible way you could have handled that. How are you handling your long-term follow-up through Chime, like long-term nurture?
Database or cold leads?
Ooh, that's a solid question. Let's go database.
All right. So with your database management, so this also applies with SOI leads. So if it's in your former client database, you've already established a relationship with them. So your database follow-up, especially over long term, we're talking 7 to 11 years, it has to be personalized. It has to have that personal touch. You're not looking for branded content. You're not looking for very jazzy marketing material with nice headers and beautiful logos. You're looking for that personal touch. And there's different technologies you can use to make this even more scalable. You can use BombBomb. So let's say, there was just a bunch of Jewish holidays. Let's say, you're very active in a Jewish community and you want to send out a BombBomb video to your former clients who are Jewish on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. You blast that out. Takes you 2 minutes, but you have a care touch right there with your SOI. You can do slide broadcasts. You can do text messages. And a best rule of thumb, you should have a care call about once a quarter for them.
Okay.
One other thing, last point, is in the Chime profile, you can actually link their social media accounts. So this is really valuable for leads over the long term, because a lot can change over 7 to 11 years. They can have more kids, they can move. So if you're doing your long-term nurture and when you have that client, you put their Facebook profile, their Instagram, or their LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a really good one because you can see career changes. When you re-engage with them, you can do a quick little intel search on them and say, okay, what's changed? Maybe they got a new dog or they changed a job. So that's one really good pro tip for database management.
I like it. I'm trying to field a bunch of questions over here for you. Let me see what else we have here. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. You mentioned 120 seconds. Is that referring to a new lead sign up, or are you using other methods like your first smart plan text?
Yeah. So good question. 120 seconds is post registration. So as soon as the lead pops in, 120 seconds starts after that. Okay. The answer is, we want our first touch to be that double tap, but we absolutely have fail safes in so that a lead will never go past 120 seconds before we have some form of engagement with them.
Okay. So let's say something came in at like, I don't know, 10 at night. How are you guys? Are you just responding first thing in the morning? What's the plan there?
Great question. So first, we have ISA teams on the East Coast and West Coast.
Nice.
So our West Coast team will provide after-hour coverage until about 9 p.m. our time on the East Coast. But beyond that, we have the AI engage to start getting engagement there. Now,
awesome.
First, the AI is not a bot. It's actually very effective. Of course, it's not perfect, but it provides that engagement. And I absolutely guarantee last time I ran this report was back in April. And in Maryland, our AI had captured 32 leads. 8 of them were engaged and 4 of them closed.
Yep.
So again, if your standard is perfection, again, you got to recalibrate that. But it absolutely is extremely valuable for especially for after-hour leads.
Yeah. I like to say the AI assistant buys me my time back. If I'm at a kid's soccer game, or if I'm wanting to have a night alone with my wife, that my phone isn't constantly. And if a person doesn't have an ISA department, if they're a single agent, it acts as your ISA, which is, and I like hearing that you're having success with it like that. We have the same thing. It's awesome. Let's see. I think that's all the questions that I have for you on here. Yeah, that's pretty much what we got for you.
There's a question here from Luana.
Ooh.
What does Chime do to nurture leads over a few years? So again, it goes back to whether they're cold leads or database. Again, there's overlap. So if it's a former client, the home report is really good. And that's going to help you stay top of mind on a monthly basis and provide that really valuable insight for your former clients. And it gives them constant opportunities to re-engage. That's going to give them information around their current home value, trends over the last few years. It's going to give them information about their current equity position, other financing options, and so forth like that. So the home report is really good for that. In terms of market reports is a top tool. It's really simple. You just go in there, you just put in the area that you want to use it for, or you want it to send for, and you set it in and leave it. And that's going to send them that information. We get tons of responses off that. And our open rate, I mean, last month, our open rate was 43% across all email communication.
Nice. Okay, so here you go. How many touches are too many touches for a new lead?
When they tell you to piss off.
Okay, I'm glad. That's why I asked you instead of just answering that one, because mine would have been maybe not as PG. And then,
yeah.
What do you find? What do you find the best? I mean, you do the double tap. Do you send anything really after that first double tap?
All right. So here's another tip. Everyone on this call has their own unique value prop, and you need to be very clear about what that is in the eyes of the consumer. So for us, for example, in Maryland, our top value prop is Bob. He's the #1 luxury agent, top Keller Williams agent. Everyone knows his face in our area. So we're going to leverage that in Maryland. So if I were to give you an example, if we're going to double tap and we don't get a hold of them, do you think our ISAs are leaving a message, or Bob is through Slide Broadcast?
I'm going to assume Bob is through Slide Broadcast.
So each of you have to figure out what is your best value in each situation and how you can leverage that to improve conversion.
Right. Cool. And then let's see, do you have any scripts for a new lead that you could share?
Well, that's a long webinar.
Right. I was going to say that's like a whole different call. Here.
General rule of thumb, speed to lead, and start with open-ended questions. You're in the discovery phase. Here's a tip on that. In that initial phase, it's all about providing value, which I know we've all heard, but what does that actually mean and how you can deliver value? If you send a communication and that person never responds, if they never transact with you, did they still get value out of that communication? And if the answer is no, you're probably underperforming in that initial phase. So if you can get really good at delivering value, your conversion rate, your engagement rate is going to increase significantly. So you can apply that same concept when you're making those first calls in your script. Come from curiosity, start with open-ended questions, how questions, what questions, figure out what's important to them, and then you can convert. But if you're just going to try to convert without knowing what's important to them, you're kind of up a creek at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone else asked any tips to increase your value?
Be more valuable in the eyes of the consumer. Like if you want to make more, you got to be more valuable. So constantly refine your skill set, constantly read. A simple thing I do each morning when I finish up at the gym, I'm on the treadmill for 30 minutes. I read each morning. It's something I started a few months ago, and I've finished like 5 books in the last few months.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it as well. Another aspect is you can join a team that has a lot of value. Go to Lucido.
I know a team like that.
So, and one last point about this funnel management. it takes a team to really do this at a super high level. I may understand each aspect of this, but I don't have enough time to do everything from the lead management, the campaign building, to the tracking, to the reporting, to managing the ISAs, to the follow-up. We have quality assurance at each step. So we have a quality assurance coordinator whose job is to ensure proper protocols followed and to maximize conversion. So it takes a team to do all these things. That doesn't mean you shouldn't apply them to the best of your ability if you're a solo agent, but it also means if you want to maximize the performance, it does take a team. It does take significant investment to run a really good sales funnel.
Right. I have one final question for you.
Okay.
What is your favorite feature of Chime?
Smart plans.
Is it the smart plans? Okay.
Yeah.
I have to ask everybody that question. That's like a thing that I always ask. And it's interesting to hear the different responses about smart plans and why. Why is it the smart plans?
What's the most common you hear?
What's that? The the listing discovery tool. That's number one.
All right. Smart plans is because, if you were going to go on like a Squarespace or a Wix and you can create a website, it's a CMS. You can design a website without having to know how to code. Smart plans is the same thing for automations. So we came from Boomtown, and Boomtown allows you to do drip plans for outbound communications, but it's pretty limited. Smart plans is not just for outbound communication, but it's for task automation. We automate our database management. We automate different alerts and triggers and reminders, different tagging, grouping with trigger smart plans. So we have tons of automations that are only made possible because of smart plans. And what gets really cool is when you start marrying those smart plans with different integrations, whether it's just through Zapier or whether you actually build something cool, but you can start expanding the capabilities when you start marrying different things like that. So for me, I geek out on it. So it'd be smart plans.
Yeah. Have you ever used KW Command?
Me personally? Limited.
I figured you hadn't. Someone asked what the difference was, and I didn't want to be the person to say it's like apples and oranges.
We use Command for compliance. We have not used Command as our primary CRM at any point.
Sure. Yeah, I was Boomtown and Real Geeks prior, and I switched because ease of use. It was so much easier. It had everything in one place. I didn't have to have what I called my Zapier workflow. One day Zapier went down, and it took every one of my steps with it, and I switched the next day. So, but yeah, that's interesting. Thank you for your time. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about? I just like listening to you talk. No. I learn stuff when I'm on calls with you.
I appreciate that. Go to lucidocareers.com/blueprint and get that blueprint and keep it on your desk. At the very least, it's a reminder. And if you focus on one step of the process and get that better, then you move on to the next one, you'll dramatically improve your funnel. But having clarity around what the steps are and then managing to those steps, I promise you'll have better, higher conversion rates. And you'll interface much more effectively with Chime's ads team because now you're going to start speaking the same language and understand a lot of the fundamentals of how these campaigns operate.
Awesome. Robert, thank you for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. It's always great catching up with you. And thanks for educating all of us today. And if you guys have any further questions, reach out to Robert through the blueprint. You can reach out to there, or if you want to talk more about Chime, you can reach out to the great Chime people that are on this call. Or if you put a link in there for me, Kendra, that'd be even better. You guys have a great rest of your day.
And my email is I just saw a couple of people are having challenges with downloading it. So you can email me at robertlucido@lucidoglobal.com. And if you're having challenges, I can shoot that over to you.
Sure. You're awesome. Robert, thanks again. Have a great one.
Take care.
See ya.